meeting for future use for those who couldn't be here today. And for those who are here, I got some treats in the back, donuts, water, bananas if you want anything. So muffins, feel free to help yourself. We are at 10:03. So I think what we'll do is probably go ahead and get started here in a second. So for those, and I don't think, is the camera not working or not? Showing the video, not that we need to do. See if that. Just doing me. So again, thanks for joining. Paul Quincy, licensing director with the Division of Liquor Control. I have with me in the hearing room, or the training room today, I have Cherie Bean. I think a lot of you, if you've been at our Liquor Commission hearings, have engaged with Cherie. And then also with us is Melissa Smith in our licensing group as well. You may not have engaged with Melissa in person, but I'm sure via email, phone, or otherwise you have. And I'm quite confident the two of them, in addition to others, have worked with you to help this transition OPAL, whether it's getting access to your accounts or helping you file transaction documents or whatever it may be. So they are with us today as well. Before we jump in on some of the updates on the training and whatnot, I did want to kind of just highlight a few things. So kind of a roadmap here. One, after a brief comment, we'll have Cherie kind of go through the renewal process. I know we did this before for October, but we have made some enhancements to the renewal process for this cycle for February, which just started yesterday officially. And I can tell you that as of this morning, and just refreshing my data here, within the last few minutes, we have 751 locations have already filed their renewals for February. We're, I think, about over 1,500 permit classes combined in all of that. So, and then I know we also had about 480 permit classes this morning around 9:30 that have started the process and are ready to go, maybe just waiting to make the payment or whatnot. So thus far, like I said, we're approaching 1,000 locations that have already actually completed the renewal process successfully for February. So as mentioned, we'll have Cherie in a second go through some of the updates, which are a little bit process-related updates, access-related updates to the renewal process for February, and then just some of the questions and flow. And then calling out some of the reminders that were there in October and remain the same. We'll also then, after that, talk a little bit about some of the updates we've made to OPAL along the way, some of the future planned updates we have coming. Obviously, try to answer some questions, time permitting, from you all, and get that feedback. I know that some have maybe sent emails to me, some have talked to me in person, or Cherie or Melissa at hearings, and also have maybe talked to Jackie about some thoughts on OPAL. For those who have sat through a staff meeting with me, one, God bless you. But secondly, I like to reference movies and or song, or I like my analogies. So I was thinking this morning of a song by Queen, two songs actually. I Want It All and I Want It Now, right? Great song. But then I also think of the song from Queen, which is, you can't always get what you want, you get what you need. Another great song. Stones, I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm not that generation, but I like it. Just seeing if you're awake, Dave. So that to be said, though, is certainly we are not of the opinion that you don't always get what you want, you get what you need. But I think equally, I think at this point we too want it all, but we have to be patient to get it all, and because we want to do it right. So, as I mentioned to staff internally, we are about 6 months since go live. We're in diapers. We're still pooping a lot. We still have a lot of diapers to change, right? And that goes for all of us. It's still a learning curve. There's still things we're learning, and just some high-level highlights I wanted to call out. So as I mentioned to, I think, you guys in the past, not long after go live and then for October, but I wanted to kind of remind and just kind of give context. So I think it's always important to have context and perspective. In our migration from our old data systems to OPAL, we had about 7 or 8 legacy systems we had to convert. One of those, not that it matters, but was called CICS. That was think of the Commodore 64 blinking cursor on the screen, MS-DOS type look to it. It's called Cobalt coding, which I don't think anyone these days really understands how to do. But that data went back from the 60s. And, as time went on, there was less and less knowledge on how to code that, how to handle that. And then obviously just technological support from outside vendors to even support that. So it's kind of like that Model T or what you want to call it, where not many people really know how to fix those things anymore. We had other systems as well, doc management systems that went through several iterations stemming as back as the late 1990s. I think when it first got stood up was 97. We had Access databases, which Access now is no longer supported by Microsoft, that had data for beer wine issues. And then we had various other systems as well that had to migrate over, in addition, our agency ops side. So again, 7-8 systems, we had 87,000 permit holder accounts that had to be migrated. We had 150,000 plus permit classes that had to come over. We had 7 million plus file images from our doc management system that had to come over, terabytes worth of data. I think it was about 4 to 5 terabytes worth of data, which prior to this conversion, we had a hard time even accessing those systems behind the scenes to get into them. They were stored, but getting into it and understanding how it worked, where the images really lied, all of those things were a challenge. We had 1 million-ish notes and or checklists to bring over as part of that system. And we had 50,000 or 150,000, stakeholder type records we had to pull over, and then about 70,000 plus financial transaction data had to come over. Some of you may say, don't care. That's fine, but I just want to at least highlight that. And as I mentioned before, in our old systems, we had screens where it was last name first. Other screens were first name last. We had screens that line 1 could only have so many characters for the address. If it rolled over, it didn't justify and go down to the next line, you had to go to line 2. So you will see, and I've seen, where maybe the permit holder cut off the Inc. name because it was, Bob's Bar and Restaurant Grill Inc. And it might originally just say Bob's Bar Restaurant. Well, in our data, it probably got cut off and migrated to another line. We need to clean that up, right? Or some of the shareholder names. You might see some of those things that are a mixed bag. Maybe the last name got cut a different way, and some of the names, right? It gets confusing. Is this the first name? Is this the last name? Does it blend together? Is that their middle name? So there is probably at least a good cycle through that we'll have to go through with you all to identify those issues and make those cleanups. So all that to be said is, in 11 months' time, I will also add that from the division perspective, since I've been here in 18, and even when I was at the AG's office starting in 09, I think there's been an effort for 10 plus years to get off of the legacy systems and into a more supported database.
Training.
And I'm just going to mute all the attendees.
They're 3 hours ahead. So
did I not mute who needs to be muted? If you can, go ahead and mute your mic. So that being said, right, I just want to kind of give that perspective. So while we know there is a lot to go, while we are looking to make additional improvements and want to make sure we include the feedback from you all, I think what I would just add is we are now, I believe, at a point where the system is more stable. We kind of have that foundation, right? Things are happening, permits are getting issued. I know some would love it to be faster. I know some want more transparency, all of those things, but I also want to make sure when we do give that transparency, it's accurate and it's correct, and what you're seeing is right, and in a logical way. So I continue to ask for your patience, especially in this holiday season of grace, right? Ask for your patience and continued cooperation with us as you've done. And I would close before I turn over to Shuri with saying, I feel confident. However, despite whatever issues you may have, I can assure you that not only have we made efforts to be at the hearings, to have these types of trainings, we will have more. I do plan to start getting at least a monthly email out to the attorney listserv, just giving you, updates of what's happened, things on the horizon, to be more communicative in that way. But we are here trying to help. We have staff behind the scenes working to help, including the call center. I know you might get an incorrect response. I would add at times they have 73,000 calls, as I understand it, from last year. 73,000, not only between our side, but the operation side. I've been doing this in 09. Some in the room have been doing it longer than me. And I can promise you in the conversations I know I've had with some of you, we learn new things every day and we see situations we haven't seen before. And sometimes this gets confusing. So imagine handling 73,000 calls, trying to know not only the operation side, the licensing side, the variables that go on. I'm bad at chess, but half the time I feel like I'm playing chess. Moving a permit here, doing something here, backfilling there. This is what we really are trying to accomplish. So keeping all that in line. I think it's easy to focus on the things that didn't go well, but I think out of 73,000 incoming calls and all the other things that were touched, I do think the majority probably do go right. We just don't really see and notice it and acknowledge it, but we will and can do better, and we'll commit to doing that. So with that, I hand it over to Sheree to kind of talk through the renewal process.
So for purposes of this, most of you have already established your OPAL account. So I'm gonna skip the registration portal and all that sort of stuff. We're gonna jump right into the renewal. So we've changed quite a few things along with the renewal process for this year. So obviously the first thing you're gonna do is select the business that you're wishing to renew for.
And to call out, if you only have one business, that's all you're linked to, I believe you should come right to the next page. If you had multiple businesses you work on behalf of, like a lawyer or licensing professional, that's where you would see on that dashboard all of the businesses you're linked to. But if you only have one, you should come right to this page because there'd be nothing to select. It would route you right to that page.
So as in the same as October, your renewals are going to be taken care of from your business level entity, not on the location level. You should log in and you should see a red explanation point on your renewals tab. And then you're going to start a new renewal application, whatever district is available for that renewal. So if you have a late renewal that's pending out there and you have this one, you could potentially have two. So just be careful. We're in District 1, choose that this time. I am in the test environment, so it does take a second longer than it should for you guys, okay? So beginning with this year, this renewal cycle, played out slightly different. We're going to start with step 1 in the questions. And the questions, these are again on the business, the entire business level at this point. I do want to call out a special call out here to question number 1. This is where the data cleanup that we were talking about. So we have linked your active stakeholders, a link right here so you can actually go in, review who we have listed. We have a shareholder contact as membership interest. My shareholder contact is also an officer. And my shareholder contact is also has voting interest. So just make sure you scroll through this pop-up screen and review all the information. If there have been changes and they're not recorded in here, then you'll want to fill out that application. If there's just the name is flipped, something along those lines, definitely just reach out to us and we can try to get that corrected.
How do you remove those individuals that are on there?
So are you talking a fact through the data conversion? I acknowledge there might be situations where in the hidden data that we had, maybe we didn't see it on our screens from the old system, but it maybe was hidden somewhere that we didn't know. That, let's say is your fact pattern, like Mark was a shareholder, he's not, you are, Kurt. But for some reason, Mark is now showing up as being active, is what you're seeing. Is that the fact pattern you're talking about?
This one happens to be an American Legion post.
Okay.
And they have 8 people listed, 4 of which are dead.
Okay.
3 of which nobody knows about because they've never updated it.
Yep. So I think in that case, that's where I would reach out to us, let us know. We will work with you to clean it up on some of that kind of, I'll call cleanup. If we understand that's the facts as you described, we're not going through a process to change it. We just, okay, great. Let's remove the people we don't need. Let's get it cleaned up. Because as I said, there's some spots where, you look on your phone, but I'm going to maybe speak out of turn technologically, but like metadata, like I don't see it, but you thought you deleted it, but it's in your deleted folder somewhere that you don't see, but it's still there. And
There's
so
no place to delete
yeah,
the person on this screen.
and so part of that, right, by design, we don't want people going in and just deleting shareholders that truly should be there.
Right.
So there is potentially that legacy data that's showing someone that maybe isn't active and didn't see active on our end and got active because they were there somewhere. I will also say, right, out of all the numbers I gave you, I didn't have time to sit up all night and go through all the lines of data and make sure every person was exactly correct, right? It would just not feasible. So that's part of this process. I would quickly say too, one thing for VFWs, we are planning to meet with them in February. They wanted us to go through some training with them. We're going to do that. But also they're a little different in the migration because in our old system, we put VFW and vets all under one base number and gave them all different suffixes to tell them apart. In the OPAL structure, right, the base number for a Dollar General, Kroger, a Giant Eagle, a Family, whatever, that base number links you in to see your entire book. So for the VFWs, we had to split it, give them all separate numbers, because otherwise, if we did the base structure like a company would be, then AMVETS would see everybody's, right? And in my mind, the AMVETS, although being part of the national org, are really distinct groups operating. So we split them all to make them have their all own OPAL accounts for that purpose. So they're not getting in there and jacking around with everyone else's stuff. But that also adds a layer to that conversion to make sure, did we get, this was dashed, whatever, did that go to the right new number and get everything where it needed to be? So I think largely it has, but some of the names and some of that could be kind of.
Well, and they're listed, generally speaking, and I've only looked at a couple because I don't represent them for renewal purposes.
Right.
But they're listed as owners.
Right.
And of course,
They're not.
Nobody owns.
Right. So
I don't know if that.
more to come later after we get through this on upcoming updates to our stakeholders, which is our next big push after the new year, which trying to work through and kind of clean a lot of that up, both on the external and internal side. But yes.
Just a quick question. When you say call us, like the specific issue,
Yep.
The general number?
You could do the general number and a ticket, or, if there's something urgent you need, you can obviously reach out here too. But I think that the inquiry, because I would say, I would also add from my perspective, and I think I say that our perspective, right? I get that name showing up is a problem and we need to fix that, right? But also add though, right? We need to document it, we need to clean it up, and we will. But X business not being able to renew at the moment and not having that privileges to be able to operate and having their New Year's Eve party is probably a bigger concern to me, right? So I think getting it on our radar, documenting it, you can also put in the renewal. I think you'll see in a second, there's a spot you can type notes. So when they go through to review it, you can make a note to say, hey, I reviewed my stakeholders. Bob, Joe, and Sam are not, with us anymore. They're not involved. We believe this is a data cleanup. Sure. Please look at it and remove it. That would be another great way, I think, to document it, even outside of a ticket. And then when our staff is at that process of reviewing those renewals, we can go through and kind of clean that up along the way.
So should we check the box in my example and what Cherie was working on there is we check the box. Yes, there have been changes.
So I think if you check yes, then that will give you option below. Yeah. So you could check yes, there's been changes. Then that one, what would you, I'm trying to see the screen.
Like officer changes, we would just put in the new officers or whatever.
And I do think if you do that, then there might be an additional.
It actually links you. I can click here.
Okay.
And it'll link you to fill out the application.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll get that done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, like I said, to me, it's important and we need to go through it, but big list of junk. Not
I
quite the
guess
same.
my question is a little bit more, because sometimes when you create a ticket and then you get the email and say, okay, it's been resolved, the email us, and you don't
Yep.
believe so, and then you email them and you don't hear anything back. I mean, I just so,
Yep.
where else do you call? Do you call again the number and create
Yeah.
another ticket?
So I mean, I guess I would say to that, I hear you.
Okay. I'm just.
No, you're right. You're right. And so I think definitely if you respond back to the ticket, we'll reopen it. I will add that the call center, I think, generally does a great job of trying to escalate those issues when necessary. If we don't feel it's getting addressed, we have internal discussions with them, daily, ongoing, live, where, hey, we have this ticket that's sitting out there. We think we need extra eyes on it. So we do escalate those up and try to resolve them as quickly as we can. So I guess I would start through that process here or there. And if you feel like you're not getting that resolution, then they will escalate or ask for it to be escalated. And we can certainly make sure we have the appropriate eyes while we're going through all
Does
this.
the email you ask for it to be escalated, or?
If you respond back to the ticket, either way, email on the ticket and or phone is going to the same spot. So it's just whether it's in writing. I personally encourage email.
I never gotten a response back in any of the
Okay.
tickets I've ever responded to, so that's.
Okay,
I
okay.
just want to make sure. I'm
Let's
looking at
talk-
the right thing.
Let's talk afterwards and make sure we got you
Okay.
taken care of on that. But I just like email because to me, I like it in writing
Okay.
versus over the phone, only because then I can see what are you asking? And then we can have that dialogue versus on the phone, it could get mistranslated or misunderstood. And now I'm getting extra hearsay of what they thought they heard you say. So that'd be helpful.
We do have a question.
Yes.
Reagan?
Yes, my question is for the ownership renewal. If we've recently already submitted a change based on company restructuring
Mhm.
and it's not reflected when they go into the renewal, are we
Right.
saying yes, there's been an update, or no, there's been an update because the application's already been submitted for the change?
So if the application has already been submitted for the change, you should be able to see it on the business level under the stakeholders. You'll see the active ones that we have and then the proposed changes. So you'll be able to, it'll be recorded in here. So not necessarily in the renewal application, but it is recorded in OPAL. You
Okay,
can
so we
always
will
check and
see.
make sure that.
All right, so we will see that that we have requested a change and, okay. That's all I want to know. I'm doing a restructuring right now on a
Yep.
bunch of our clients, and that was one of my concerns because we've got
Yep.
several that are Columbus based.
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess I would say when in doubt, again, you can always, if you don't see that change there, I mean, feel free to reach out, let us know. And like I said, it's a process, making this transition, but if there's something that highly critical there, Reagan, let us know.
So new
Thank
with
you.
this, you're welcome. So new with this renewal, starting this cycle, some expanded options for you. If you say yes to question number 2, we've given you a second question or a second box here to be able to describe what the conviction was, things like that. So just some expanded options. You can also upload files directly here instead of having to go to your document tab and upload them. We're trying to encompass it all in the renewal for you right here. So once we answered all of our business entity questions, we're going to save and continue. And this next portion is probably the biggest change that you're going to actually see. So within this, step number 2 is our locations. You notice here in this light blue box, we have one location for this business that is eligible for renewal. If you have multiple locations, I was working on one yesterday, had 58 locations. So it's going to tell me how many total locations there are eligible for this renewal cycle. To start, you're going to click into the select location. If there were more than one, this list would be really long. Okay. As you complete the renewal for that, the location that you already submitted for is going to fall off of that list. So you can just keep clicking and going through this until all the locations are gone. Okay. But again, the number that's in the blue box will not change. It is your total. But as you click through, you'll see that they go away. Okay. So for this location, we do have a couple location specific questions that you'll need to answer. Again, you click yes, there's options to be able to answer or give us more detail right in the renewal. After we click save and continue, the permit classes are going to be displayed for you. They're all going to be automatically checked for you as if you're going to renew all of them. If that is what you wish to do, go ahead and just click add and move on. If you say, you know what, I really don't need the D6, you do have to deselect it and then click add, because it's going to only add what is checked. Okay.
And that will add them all at once as opposed to that other where we're
Correct.
transferring where we have to do each and every one. Okay.
Correct.
So in theory, if you have a location and you want to renew all the classes, then it's just that one click of add and you just keep going through. Really, there's extra steps if you will, is when you don't want to renew certain classes there, then you have to take that affirmative action of deselecting that class or classes. And similarly on the list, that Sheree mentioned, if you were a larger client with multiple locations, then you might leave a few locations on the list if those are locations you're not renewing, right? And just by not including the location, then all the classes they're under also would go away in your shopping cart, right? So if you don't want the paper towels, then don't take the paper towels, right? And then you don't have to worry about all the individual paper towels within the entire wrapping.
So once you have selected all of your locations, however many that is at that time, you'll get a yellow message that tells you you have no more remaining locations to let you know that you have renewed all of them. This list right here will be an all-encompassing list of everything that's included in this transaction. So if you're renewing multiples and they're broken up by class, so this could be a lengthy list for you. But once you know that you've added everything and that you're ready to go, you can certify your application and submit and check out.
And so recalling out, and we will have this in our updated video, which we post in the next few days. You have multiple locations, you can put them all in one transaction or shopping cart. You don't have to go location A, pay, come back. Location B, pay, come back. No, you can put them all in one cart and pay all at one time. I would also add, I think it still might happen, which I am not aware is an us issue, meaning a division issue, nor an OPAL issue. We had this in our old system. If you have those larger clients that have, doing a renewal transaction in the $10,000 range, right? I think it still happens where their bank might alert the payment as fraudulent or flag it and deny it. So our recommendation previously, pre-OPAL and in OPAL, is still to talk to your bank and see how that goes. I don't know, but that's not, from what I understand, that's not us blocking it or us doing anything. It's just saying, hey, why are you paying this much and this woot, right? And that it's a blocker there. If that happens, we normally have had no issues working with, and Sandy from our office typically will reach out, we'll connect, we'll make it work, and all of that. But I just want to call that out, that still might be an issue. But if it is, that's a payment issue with your client's bank vendor.
So once you've reached the checkout page, again, under the order details, it's going to include everything that's included in this transaction. Same as before, you're going to select your payment method.
What's the number one rule of lawyers? Never demonstrate technology in the courtroom, right? I just want this credit card number because anything you want,
Things.
anything you want off of this one. And it's not a real credit number, people, so don't try and screenshot it and use it.
Once you have added your credit card or your bank information,
So it's not your credit card?
I use yours, Nate. You got a higher limit than I do, so I'll go with you any day of the week.
we're going to authorize our payment. Once the payment is successful, you will get a green message that says your payment is successful. The next screen here. So one important thing I would do want to call out again, this is the same as last time, but just want to make sure that everybody understands this. This is the only time that you are going to get a total payment confirmation that includes everything that's in this transaction. It's the only time. So we encourage you to print this for your records, save it to your desktop, put it on your wall, something. But this is the only time, once you navigate away from this page, you can't recover it and neither can I. So it is gone once I navigate away from this page. So please, 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 if that's something your client needs, print this page.
And this, I mean, is your itemized receipt, right? I mean, we can still see that you paid. We can still see it came through. I mean, you'll see that too on the receipt. You'll get that renewal receipt. But as Cherie's saying, this is kind of your like full itemized receipt, line by line, everything there that you have here. And trying to find ways to get future access to it, but right now that's where we are. That this is your time to print it or save it.
So after you've done that, we're gonna navigate back to the business entity level.
And you'll notice the red exclamation that was next to the renewal tab has now gone away, because that red exclamation to the right of the renewal tab tells you there's renewals to do. But now that Cherie has completed all of them, that, flag, if you will, has gone away from that tab.
So once you're back there, you want to navigate to your documents tab. And there are two different ways you can do this. If you go to the documents tab on the business entity level, you will be able to print your renewal ATOs or your tax orders or your no ability to sell from this page, but this will give you all of everything that's included in this transaction. So it'll be one packet of every location. If you want to, so there's my authority to operate. If I want to only print, say I have multiple locations and I only want to print this location, if you go into that specific location, navigate to that documents tab. When you do that ATO, it will be only for that location. Does that make sense? So
Does the license come up immediately if everything's clean, or just the ATO?
just the ATO for now. We still do have to review them on our side.
If there is a tax hold, does the House Bill 231 non-renewal order come up immediately?
Yeah, so I'm assuming we'll talk through it in a minute, but a couple things. One, actually, I'll save some of my statements for later. We'll hit on that, but yeah.
I don't have an example of that, but instead of, when you click on this renewal receipt, that's why it's called a renewal receipt, not an ATO necessarily, because it could be your tax non-renewal order. It could also be your no ability of sale if you are in safekeeping or closing.
So is it going to print both? Is it going to show both a no ability,
Yeah, so
receipt, no ability?
It's fact dependent. So for the location that should get the ATO, that receipt would be your ATO for that location. For the location that had a tax issue, you're going to get the tax order right then, right? And so the goal, and we did this in October, the goal here for February again is you have the tax order right now. Now I want to call out, I think most of you may know, some of your clients may not know or read it, but that tax order isn't in effect until 2/2, 6/2, 10/2. So if you have the tax order, right, number one, you should have gotten a letter from taxation. They're required to send it. I'm not going to talk about whether you got it or not. We will be sending a letter, reg mail, like we have in the past, and we did for October as a courtesy to remind you that you have tax problems to the clients. I'm going to try and get an email out to those people as well to say, hey, tax problems. So you'll get the tax order, right? Immediately get the taxation, try to resolve it. But if you don't, you have the tax order already in your hand, and you can then take that on 2/2 and go file your appeal, and you don't need to wait for us, right?
In addition to the tax order,
Yep.
does it also print out a receipt that says no authority to operate? So do you have two things?
No.
One.
No, you'll get, so if you are otherwise good, meaning there's no tax hold, you're not in safekeeping, right? You're going to get that ATO, right? If you have a tax issue like you did before, right? We never gave receipts before. Your receipt was the tax order. That proves you filed. That's what we used to do, and that's what we're still doing. You'll get a tax order. If you are only in safekeeping or something like that, then you'll get that no ability to sell. It's going to say, hey, you can't sell because you're in safekeeping. If you don't want to be in safekeeping anymore, reach out, go through the process, pull it out of safekeeping. And when that is completed, then we will get you the ATO or the permit. So after reviewing everything, right, we would then notify you, hey, we've reviewed your renewal, we posted your permit. Two things, this is not new, so I can say it now, it's not an update, but we are no longer mailing the hard copy color permits, right? So I don't know how many times I responded to people myself and or we get calls. Well, I need my permit. Your ATO expires 2/1/26. It works just the same. I've added language for the distributors that they can take it and use it to sell. We've talked to the spirituous liquor side to let them know that they can make the sales. So it is really no different. Just like now with the real ID with my driver's license, I got that piece. I was nervous too, right? But I can drive on that until I got my hard copy license. It's no different. And so this is like the boarding pass to get me onto my plane on my phone or a paper ticket. It works the same. So when you have the ATO, post it, use it, everyone should understand, our agents understand, public safety should understand, the distributor should understand, right? So all of those things should be there and we should be good, right? So the permit will get to you, but you don't need the permit. The ATO, if you have it, works the same. Hopefully that makes sense.
And on the permit, once we do review your renewal and we issue your permit, it will also just be posted into your OPAL account under the documents tab. You'll get an email that says, hey, your permit is ready to be printed. And you can log into your OPAL, go to your documents tab and print those. So we're not going to be mailing even,
Right.
we're not mailing anything to you. You will get an email that says, go do it yourself. Okay?
Self-help. You can
Self-help.
print it yourself, and if you lose it, I don't care. Reprint it, download it, whatever you want to do.
So that kind of takes us all the way through all of the changes for this cycle. Anybody have any questions?
I have another question. I received an email a couple of days ago that has like a list of 80 permits that I'm connected with, talking about renewals. Is there also a notice that goes out to the individual permit holders reminding them of the renewal? Or is it our burden to contact
So
all the
is that, when did you get that email?
Wednesday, December 17th? Yeah, yesterday.
At noon.
So, yeah.
12:01.
So, yeah, so the reason you were communicated to, or whoever got it, right, is we, from a digital perspective, have, for the vast majority of our permit holder accounts, have an email contact because you either went into OPAL and filed stuff on their behalf currently. You were the email that was on the renewal from the prior system that we had for the last several cycles online, right? There is something in our data that has connected you to that license, right? And if that's the case, that's who we're starting with, right? And so if you file renewals and you're an attorney and you're the only one that has access to the system because your permit holder hasn't got in yet, but you have and you've been transacting and you're linked in, we're starting with you, right? And so you then, I guess, need to talk to your client whether you want to get them access as well to go file the renewals. I know some of the attorneys said, hey, I teed it all up. I left it for payment. I reached out to my clients. They're going to go in and they'll make the payment. Your choice. If there's other people we need to get in, we can go through that registration process and get them access, and or you can add them as well through the account management tab, and we can talk maybe a little bit about that. But you can do that. But that's where we're starting because we have belief that you're the one handling that for them. If that's not the case, you can do that. Now, if yours, there would be two variations on that email. One, and it should say on your list, it would then say something to the effect of, you're getting this because you've previously been connected to these accounts. You've logged in and done something with them before. And so here's the list. And all you now need to do is go sign in. And to Cherie's point at the beginning, when you come into OPAL, you should see all of those businesses on your dashboard, right? Another email went out the other day as well, around the same time, maybe 12:02, that would have been potentially to lawyers that had some interaction, but haven't logged in under that account yet. So for some reason, we have your email, but you've not yet gone into OPAL on their behalf, or the permit holder, right? We have their email from old system, but maybe hasn't gone in yet to OPAL. In that case, you should have then gotten a link next to each of those numbers. And all you would have to do there is click the link and it'll take you right to this renewal page to start filing. So we're trying to bypass having to get you registered first for those situations where you haven't already come into OPAL to help speed up that process. If you get that, you can forward that to people who are maybe more appropriate to file the renewal. So if you had the link next to each business, you could forward that email to those people that can file. But, Mark, you and I talk all the time. I try to be very careful with my words on what I'm saying. And not perfect. Read the email only because to call out those links, if you have multiples in that email, those are unique to that business. So if you just forward the whole email to everybody, you've now given Bob, Joe, Mary, Sue, different businesses, all of those links. So you can send an email forward to, okay, this link is for this business. It's going to be sent. That link is going to John. Okay, this link is for that business. I'll send it here. But I guess all to say we had to start somewhere. On top of that, though, I would add, we've been sending emails out the last few weeks to contacts, letting them know. We're also going to send postcards out to the businesses by reg mail, letting them know, hey, permits are up for renewal, go into OPAL to do it, right? So So with that said, part of the transition is right, like we got to start somewhere, and we're going because you've been in there, you've been filing dues and transfers. If renewal is not part of your game with them, no problem. Get them access. Let's go. We can work through it, but we're starting somewhere, and you are the person that was in there on the account transacting or have been involved.
So something is being sent.
We will send
the individual.
We are sending permit holders reg mail, and I'm sure some might say, I didn't get it, but we are sending that to them as
Yeah,
well.
my concern, and I appreciate this, my concern would be that
Yeah.
if we get this all of a sudden with regard to our permit holders,
Yep.
when it doesn't get renewed, it's become our burden to
Well,
make all these
I
renewals.
think though, right, and look, I've never practiced in the private side. I acknowledge that, right? But I would imagine that has to be a conversation with the client. And I know some may have had, and with October or June. So maybe something to forethink for June, right? If you have people you represent, like, hey, let's talk now how we're doing renewals, right? I've been filing your dues and transfers in OPAL, but I'm not handling your renewals. I need to make sure you get access now so we can get you teed up so that it's ready to go.
I didn't get something like this for October, which is fine.
So,
I'm sure I want this.
well, and so for October though, right, part of the issue is we were first time through, we had suppliers coming in that have never renewed online before. So we had about 10,000 businesses needing to come in and get renewed. I think we're trying to, in our view, do a better job to communicate. So at the end of the day, I mean, if I don't have an email, if I don't have a contact, who am I getting a hold of, right? And what we've tried to do in this update through those links who aren't registered is make it easier access, as opposed to having to call the call center, go through the form, wait for us to process that. You gave us the wrong information. You gave us the wrong OHID email. The link allows you to bypass all of that and just get in and file, kind of like before. And then once you're done with the renewal, then we ask those questions of, hey, by the way, you've got the link, you've renewed, great, that's awesome. But now that you're here, let's get this information from you to see whether you are the right person for long-term access to the account, but at least you got through the renewal process. October was kind of flipped. We had the gate shut until we let you in, which caused some delay, we think, and some stress there to get people in. So this way, if you've already been in, do what you did. If you haven't been in yet to OPAL, let's get you in to do the renewal. And while we're there, we'll capture that so we have more time to process the long-term access, but at least you can get in and file and do what you need to do. So if you have a link that was sent to you, you can forward that to the appropriate people and let them go through the process. If you already had access, Mark, on all of these accounts, then I think you can either go in and file, you could get them teed up or whatever. And then that's more account management, which we can go through here in a second on how you can get them in on a self-service without even having to come to us. Or you could have them come through the process, but you should be able to self-service and get them access.
My main concern was they're getting some sort of notice.
They will.
Hey, you got a permit to renew.
They will. The notice should also be right. The thing they have on the wall says 2-1.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean,
Giving some people way too much credit.
well, I'm just saying, I mean, there's that notice too, right? And if they've had a business for years, it seems to renew every time at the same cycle. So
I agree.
But you're right. We will be sending it, and they'd get the Felder new letter. If they didn't do it, they get additional reminders. So the same cadence of reminders are still there. But
So this is sort of a supplement, and it doesn't replace.
it doesn't replace, but it kind of kicks off to say, and I will add, in the old system, we would have done the same thing. Now, they may have signed up their email at that point just to follow the renewal, but that's how we would do it. We would have sent an email. Hey, it's time to renew. Here's your links. You're getting the email because you filed last year or this is what you told us. That's what we're doing. So similar to here, this is what you told us. You're working out with these businesses. That's why you're getting it.
And I don't mean to keep following up. So if people used their link last year for the February 1, 25 renewal, they would be getting notice as well.
If we have them on there as a contact, right? So right. Yep.
And I like the letter actually because it allowed me then to remember, when I've got a transfer pending, I've got to get the buyer or the seller,
Yeah.
whoever's responsible
Yeah.
to pay. So it does.
And for October, I emailed the buyers, we sent letters. We will do it again for February here shortly to remind the buyers to say, hey, they're up for renewal, right? And what we couldn't do in October as easily, which we are trying to do better now, is be more specific for you. So October, we did send emails, but they were more generic on, hey, you have clients, don't know who, or I can't tell you who in the email, go look. Now we're trying to be more precise, say, these are the exact clients you have that we believe per our data you are connected to. So let's engage with them and reach out to them. But you're right, the buyer piece as well, we're trying to let them know.
The email's a good idea. I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't the exclusive notice.
For the third time.
Yes,
Sorry.
get good malpractice insurance. How's that? Do we want to go through
I can, yes.
real quick? Okay.
The accounts management tab is on your, the business level, the entity page. And you click add new user. You do need their OHID email address, whatever their email address is attached to their OHID. That's the one that you need to put in here. So that's a question that you have to get from your clients. What is that? You know, if your OHID is registered with your Yahoo and then you guys put in your Gmail, they're not going to link up. So you have to use whatever is attached to their OHID.
And we will be posting a help video. We've done it. We just need to get it on the web in the next day or two here that goes through and shows screenshots of how you can help your clients either on the phone or just direct them to the video. Walks you through of where on the OHID website they can see what email is on their OHID. It's a couple steps. You get into OHID, you click a few buttons here and there, and they can see what email they've linked to that OHID, which then, as Cherie pointed out, is what you would want it here. So if you're trying to have that dialogue, you can say, hey, on the division's website, there's a video, watch it, tell me where, or just walk it through on the phone, you know, click here, click there. What is the email that's being displayed on the screen to you? That's the email I need to have to put in here.
The most important call out for this is you want to search for a contact before you create a new contact. So if you search by that email and nothing comes up, you're going to want to create a new contact. But if you search for that email, if I put in Mark's email right here, it's going to pull Mark Meyer's attorney and I can select him from the list and then I can add him. So it's important to search first before you actually create that new contact. But if you do need to create a new contact, it is just first name, last name, email, and a telephone number. I know telephone number is not a required field, but it'd be really nice if you could include a telephone number just in case there's something we need to contact them with. That one's pretty easy.
Kind of renewals, but pivoting a little bit into some of the updates. You know, Kurt, you mentioned, would you get a permit right away if the renewal was, you know, quote unquote, air quotes clean, right? So pivoting a little bit to some of the updates, right? We have been making some updates to OPAL externally, but we've also been trying to do a lot of behind the scenes things. So one of the things we're doing this cycle, so maybe a term of art internally, but we have a term that had been around for years, which is called it's RDNI, renew, do not issue, right? So back in the day, you would have gotten that permit or that document from our prior paper days where it'd say it was a renewal receipt, right? So this would be a fact pattern where maybe the city of Columbus has objected to the renewal, you file it, you're not going to get a permit, but you'll get a receipt that you could post and operate, right? Maybe there was a pending transfer on file and you would get a receipt, not a permit, right? So in those instances, what we are trying to do better now that we have more ability to do this is when you file, so all the questions we've added, there's behind the scenes logic that is starting to apply. Think of it almost as like post-it notes, right? To say, hey, this file, they've identified they have an ownership issue. This file, they've identified they have a conviction issue. This file, they've said that the locations have been closed, right? Because I think on the location level, if you tell us certain things have stopped operating, you get a list to then tell us, select for us what locations have actually stopped operating, right? Because now we know of all of those locations, these three, we need to look for safekeeping potentially or closing, right? Where the other ones may be okay. So one that's going to help us, I think, sort our data better to be more quick to target as opposed to a generic, there's a problem here. We can now start parsing behind the scenes at point of entry to say we have more knowledge about what the exact issues going on as reported by you when filing are. On top of that, my goal and hope is by June, certainly by next October, that we can be in a place that if your renewal application is quote unquote clean, nobody's objected to the renewal. There's no tax issues. You're not in safekeeping. You didn't close any of your locations. You still meet all the rules and regs, all of those things. Then let's just go, right? Because there's no reason to really process that, right? which will then allow our staff more time to focus on the things that are an issue. Whereas previously, even on paper, right, of all the 8,000, 9,000 renewals that came in, even on paper, that required manual look to see, at the very least, initially, is it clean? I just go? Is there a problem? I got to put it here and get it to somebody else. That type of manpower, person power had to happen, which by putting these Post-it notes on will help kind of pre-sort all of that. And then the next step, right, is to simply say, well, if there's no issues, why do I have to have Sheree even look at it, right? Let's just renew the permit, get it posted, let's go on our way and be done with it. So that's where we're moving to. But in the interim, we're trying to get more, I'll use the word intelligent, but more thoughtful about how we're identifying the issues that are being brought up on the renewals, and tag them so that staff can maybe target more on what the issues are, where we need to go, and how we need to process them more effectively and efficiently. So that's one of the updates we're making behind the scenes, which I hope will turn into some fruitful things outside of, because really of all the renewals we get, I'm guessing less than a third really have issues, right, that we need to follow up on. But as I said, currently, we still have to look at all of them to make that determination. So if we can get to a point where, hey, out of 8,000, we don't even have to touch 5,000, that saves a lot of time, right? Saves a lot of time. So that's where we're moving towards and trying to do some of those things. On top of that, one of the updates that's out there and we're refining is one of the things, as anything, right? I know Sharon, I think, is on the call. I mean, her and I talked about an issue which seemed so small, but took like 45 minutes because there's just layers and layers and wrinkles, right? And so many wrinkles, my face looks like I'm 95. All that to be said is that one of the things is like the tax issue, right? So in the past, you would have a tax hold. Someone goes and pays the taxes, immediately calls us, where's my permit? Well, number one, just because you talked to tax and paid the money doesn't mean they've cleared it, doesn't mean we've been notified yet. But because we're more digital, maybe we can get there better, sooner, quicker, that we can communicate electronically to get that communication faster. But we do have built-in automation now overnight that will allow, and we can look at trying to speed that up, but that if we got word from tax digitally that that tax issue has been resolved, then it can regenerate a permit overnight, post it to OPAL, and let's go on, right? Whereas currently, right, in the past, it had that someone had to reach out, we had to look at it, we, all of those manual things. So that's also something that's now there, and we're trying to refine it, because then you get into situations, right? Well, the tax, but now you're still in safekeeping, or, well, what if you had to stay? I mean, there's always kinds of layers to
Does that
things, but working on
include
that.
like LCC orders?
Yeah, not currently, but getting there, because then again, there's a lot of, well, what about this situation? What about that situation? So then I think in talking with someone the other day on some of the logic, right, are we going 80-20? How many fact patterns? What are we trying to allow for? What if you do one thing? Again, I suck at chess, but I feel like I play it every day, right? If I do this, does that block this? If I do that, does that block that? What are the unintended consequences of the logic that's being put in place? Because we know there's a lot of moving parts to the liquor side. You guys transact. I love when you do it. It makes it fun for me, trying to figure out who's going where. The D1's going there, the D2's going here, the D3 staying there. I'm backfilling a D1-2 here. I'm adding a D6 here, this doing here. All if it's dry for carryout, I don't want the D6. If it's I want, all of those things happen. That's our job. But how do you logically code for all that to not box yourself in a corner? And equally, I will add, from a technological perspective, from a support perspective, the more we code more precisely, two things happen. It becomes less supported by the vendor for Microsoft as updates happens, right? If I make all these changes to my iPhone, when Apple pushes an update, it's going to fail because I've made all these unique changes now and it might not run the same, number one. And number two, if we get so specific like we had in our old systems, then when that person who did all that specificity leaves, who the hell knows, right? I mean, you can write it down, but right. So, and that's some of those issues too. So there's a balance of off the shelf, let's see what makes work in most scenarios, knowing that we have to account for those unique situations and trying to refine it. So that is part of the process now we are doing on updates, is refining through things, which one is stakeholders. So not only from a data conversion, stakeholders being shareholders, officers, members, voting interest, all of food and beverage people, all of those things, right? The people at the VFW who are the lodge person, whatnot. All of those things from a data perspective, we're working through to clean up, number one, because it's hard to stick things in places where when your data is not perfect. But then beyond that, we know externally, we're working through trying to make the process better to make sure that you can't come through and not give us units, right? That there should be some blockers to say, let's logically take you down the path so that when you submit the application, we've got the information we need and we don't have to go back and forth. Equally, trying to manage the process in one spot. Right now it's broken up. If you had to make a change, you do things one spot somewhere else. So behind the scenes and publicly trying to bring that data together better so that you see it in a more logical way and starting to make some of those connections for you through that process. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to
I
add.
want to call out for Reagan here. And
Yep.
Your question earlier, Reagan, if you look here on the stakeholders tab, you'll see the pending stakeholder changes. Anything you have previously submitted would be down here that has not been approved yet. So if you don't see anything here and it's not correct up here, and you've already submitted that, definitely reach out to us. If you haven't already submitted, then you would want to go ahead and start your new application. But we do have quite a few files that are still pending that we have to approve and go through.
How many, on clubs, how many people do you want? Is it 4 like we used to do? Is it still going to be the same, the top 4 officers?
I think that's an open question right now because I know Holly has talked to me about that. And I mean, right now, for like the D4 clubs you're talking, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think we were trying to move pre-OPAL to more of just like, I just need a food and beverage person. Just give me someone that's a point of contact. I think that's where we're still lying because at the end of the day, we're not probably doing much with that officer data anyway.
Well, and there are some of those clubs have 12 officers.
And they change so frequently. So could we collect it? I guess we could. We couldn't before, we can now, but I'm not sure it's worth that investment on our
Maybe
end.
the head coupon, the person who's in charge of the manager.
Right. So I think, again, that's part of this refinement, which we will make sure we engage with some of you on that refinement before we roll it out. Sure, it makes sense. It looks good. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're moving more towards
Thank you.
that nonprofit status. I do see the question from Tom about adding folks for high privilege. There's a message, Andrew, about like in the account management tab, they're getting a response. The contact has a high privilege and can't be added through the page. I do believe, and I'll dig in further on that. I know there's times where if, and this is something I think we can continue to look at, but if I'm adding users and I have a certain access level, I think that might be where some things get blocked because currently your user is your user, right? Meaning if I have an email and OHID under Yahoo, then that's my account. I don't think we're able to currently have it where on this business, I have full access. On that business, I have limited access. As a user, I think is where your access comes into. So if you wanted different access levels, meaning, well, I want to be full access and do everything here, but on these accounts, I just want to be limited, then I think you'd have to give me one OHID that has full access and another one that has less access. Because if you're trying to put me under the same OHID, you're either getting it or you're not. So I guess I would almost say it's like, it's probably a bad analogy, but it's one that comes to my mind, an authorized user on a credit card, right? Like if I'm going to give you access to the credit card, I'm giving you access to the credit card, right? And you either have that access of making all the charges and seeing everything, or you don't. And if you want different access, then I need a different login to give you that more restricted role currently. I don't think we were able to separate same username, but then different roles on different businesses. I think that is what is causing that, but I will confirm and get back to you, Tom.
General question, is there a place where all of the permits that are issued that day can be seen? The only reason I'm asking is because there have been times where, as the attorney, even though most of the time we get notification,
Right.
or especially if there's officer changes, that a lot of times just goes through.
Yep.
And 2 months later, I send an email and I realize the officer change has occurred.
Yep.
So is there, if that's something that could be done on the list, I think it would be great for everybody to see.
So a few things on that note, I would say, and Sheree, feel free to jump in if there's more I forget to add, but one is we are, from public reporting, right? We are refining that. without getting into great detail, because boring-ish, but that to be said is we've learned like, oh, well, so for various reasons, we thought it made sense to split the permits non-retail and retail for a different data structure that might apply to non-retail that maybe doesn't apply to retail and vice versa, columns of what might be relevant, right? On non-retail, there's no issue about being quota or non-quota. Retail, that might make sense, right? So there might be different things you want to show and without overblowing that, all these rows that you might not, columns you might not need. But in doing that, right, it became issues where, well, if you do that here, then there's this. If you do that, then there's that, right? So I think we're moving back to just putting them all in one. So number one, right, on the public reporting, you would see that. And I would say on top of stakeholders, another area of push, which there's several, to me and to us is working on that more automated communication through OPAL, right? So again, we talk renewals, right? I think getting to a spot where we can do more automatic generated information being shared out of the system automatically, right? Leveraging those checklists that we have, being better about those. I know some folks have asked about, I want a progress tracker to see when things have gone out, all of those things. I hear you. I think it makes a lot of sense. Just trying to work through the refinement to put that in there to make it work, right? So yes, I think we can, the public reporting be one way to see, and you can sort, hey, show me permits issued with a date of X, right? And you can see that probably even today, but we could also, I think, beef up some of the system-wide communications going out that could help notify
So if I
people.
do go into the system and say permits issued today, or I give a date, it will have a list?
If you went to public reporting and pulled the permits, I don't see why you couldn't have a list, but I will verify.
Okay.
I also have a general question. I'm
You already had 5. You got.
I know, so Raybro keeps reminding me.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
I'm confused about personal history background forms.
Yes.
Should we complete a personal history background form and file it with OPAL? Because
Yeah.
I haven't, but I've received
Yeah.
some back.
So again, what I would add to that is personal history forms pre-OPAL were filled out on paper, right? And there was nowhere for us in our old systems to enter all of that data, right? Sure, we would collect the name, we'd collect social for background check issues, but we couldn't collect various other things you'd put on there. Now we can, right? Now we can collect that through the online process. So there's part of it, I think, where you get data, right? And let me call out something I think maybe folks have forgotten. If your permit number, your base number starts with a 0, because I think Mark, you and I were talking about this. If it starts with a 0, that means it was migrated from our old system. If it starts with a 1, minus VFW fraternals, because they all got new numbers, then that means it was first created in OPAL, right? So that's a quick, easy distinguishing point. If it starts with 0, it was from paper, migrated in. If it's a 1, you created it first in OPAL and it's only ever existed in OPAL, right? And from the base number, all we did was throw a leading 0. So if your permit number previously 7 digits was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you just added a 0 to the front. That's all we did. Real fancy. But all that to be said is when we convert it, right? And we're trying to, like, let's say you, Mark, I know there was a handful, which that's okay. We asked you to do it. There was a handful of paper that were submitted right before go live, right? So that data of personal histories wasn't in OPAL. And when it is in OPAL, it allows our folks to hit a button, create the personal history to send it, because that's where we're going, right? I don't need the paper. You fill it out. I hit a button on my side that prints it and I fax it or mail it over to the PD, right? But in this case, I don't have the data, right? So then it becomes, I can either enter it in or they can reach out to you, or there's times where on the stakeholder pushes we're making for January, I see it, pushes we're making for January, there's some times where it's not had the logic to block. So people have gotten in without filling everything out. And so then we get into a question of, do we go back and forth? Do we just, you know what, here, get the form, get what I need, I can fill it in. So I think I would summarize by saying, it depends on the facts. Was it migrated or not? Transition, getting all of it in. I would say a year from now, right? As we've migrated a lot in and got all that through, I would see very much less and less we're going to need that. But right now, because of some of the limitations, we didn't get in or just some of the things you want to say we missed or we didn't do well enough right now that we're working on with stakeholders, there just might be even still today, some people who get through and don't give us all we need. And so sometimes it's just easier to say, hey, fill this out for right now. That way we know what you want versus going back and forth, trying to explain it. And then we can take it and move on.
Right.
But
So
long term, no.
As a general rule, the answer is no.
Answer is no.
Except unless there's a reason.
Unless there's a
you guys help.
and we're reaching out to say, hey, we don't have everything we need. Can you just fill this out so we can get moving? Then that's where, but again, long term, I think that will be less and less, and we'll get to a spot where that won't generally be needed. But keep in mind, we have permits on file from like the 90s that could get an opening 3 years from now, and we're not going to have that data. So there's always going to be that lag of just as things migrate over. But I think it'll get less and less and less to the point where it's much more non-existent. Did you have a question?
I just follow, I seem to be getting those requests for PHB or like a 4032 when I make a mistake and that just social security number or something. So when I submit those, upload those in the OPAL for the correct, can I just do it as power of attorney or do they have to be, okay, perfect.
So, yeah, I mean, just upload an Opal. I think we should be good.
Perfect. Thank
And
you.
I think, again, some of that is just instead of going back and forth in email, it just sometimes it might be easier for staff to say, hey, can you just fill this out so we actually track what you're doing and then we're good. Yep. Mhm.
Saying, hey, you need to.
And then
Signature.
the only thing I would add to that is partly too, right? I know you guys can't change it. You should be able to change shareholder information up until submission. But once you submit the app from the first location from a business, because once you lock in the business by submitting an app for a location, we're locking you out for making those changes. One, public records, right? Two, I trust you. But at the same time, I don't want you going in and be like, oh, it's like Ferris Bueller, right? He's on the screen, the principal's talking about all of a sudden all the days he was absent are starting to get deleted off the screen, right? We don't want that happening. So you're locked in. And then if any changes happen, now we got to go through a process, right? Or at least we need to be mindful of it. Up until submitting that first location, you can make all the changes you want. But after that point, it would be no different than filing paper. We wouldn't let you just send something else and say, hey, I'm going to come into the office at night and white it out and rewrite it. No, you got to come through us now. And you are getting blocked.
Read was very nice. I
Yes.
fingered a instead of an ampersand, I just fingered a $sign.
Yes.
So, and you guys were able to change it for me. So.
Yes. And like I said, I know we're not there yet. I was corrected earlier, Rolling Stones versus Queen, it's both. But trust me, I want to get there just as fast as you guys do. I appreciate generally the patience you've shown us through this. I know it's frustrating at times. I don't think we've necessarily left anyone high and dry or out of luck on critical issues thus far, and we'll do our best to not do that. I do think we're making some progress. There's a ways to go, but like I said, from my view, I think we're just trying to now be a little more methodical in those changes because what I don't want is simply just keep putting a Band-Aid. I like my analogies, right? As I will tell my staff, if someone came into me and said they have a headache and I don't assess the patient and just say, well, give them some Tylenol, it'll be fine, right? They could be freaking bruised like heck with, gushing, whatever. Tylenol ain't fixing that problem, right? I got a bigger issue to look at, right? So to me, I think just being more methodical, critical, thinking it through, really trying to go externally, internally, what are the other issues that this could impact? And lastly, I'd say from the data that came over, right, trying to build a system to handle net new, but also being mindful that the net new process might not really work for the migrated process either, right? So how do you balance all of those things? We're trying to do that. We want to make sure your voices are heard and that we're incorporating your feedback, but it is going to be a process. But that's just me trying to speak truthfully to that. Anything else you want to share or any other questions that came through? I don't see any more questions. Additional updates, like I said, I will get a summary email out to you guys with some things. And as mentioned earlier, plan to start doing kind of after the new year here, at least a monthly. Sure, I was going to do bi-weekly. Sure, you said that's very ambitious. At least monthly, trying to push out kind of what some of the external updates are going on for your knowledge. One thing we're working on for February as well is we had in the past, October as well, a list of like who has not renewed. Changing it up a little bit for February, look to post it after the new year. It'll be a complete list of all of those filers who can renew for February and just adding a column to say, have they filed or not, right? So you could sort that list to see, show me just who has not filed, show me who has filed. show me the whole list with the column that says filed or not filed next to their name, right? As a way to just kind of track the entire status of what's going on within that group. So that's something we're working on, right? I don't know if we posted it yet, but we now have the ability for like the D5Ls and Js to post the quota and see who's online. That way you don't have to reach out to us like you used to, because we didn't have access to do that publicly. Now we can do that publicly, and we're working on those reports as well to give you that information. We do have the ability in OPAL. We haven't done it yet because, again, data want to make sure we're good, but to do operating privileges. So from a distributor perspective, right, it would maybe be easier to see, does this business have operating privileges or not? Just look at our data. It's not out there yet, but when we post that at some point in the near future, you could see quickly, can they be selling or not? Building in that logic.
Be great.
On 2.2, if they haven't renewed, it should flip to no. If they go into safekeeping, it should flip to no, right? If they then file, it should flip back to yes, right? But there's all that logic. You get tax orders from commissions, you get appeals, stays, whether they should be doing. There's a lot of logic to build in. Some might still require human intervention until we really have it good. But I think there's scenarios we can utilize to do that and make it better. Connecting with our operations side when permits get issued, we're working there. I know some folks have brought up about the agency store question that's asked on the application. I think we're removing that checklist item for now from our end. I know operations is sending emails out. We're modifying the wording on that email, hopefully make it more clear for the end user. But long-term, we're working through, but long-term, we can do a lot more there to integrate with their systems now that we're on the same platform. We can speak to each other better. We can, permits get issued. We know what stores and do all those things. So I think we can do a lot there too. It just takes time. Yes. Another question?
Yes.
Yes, the training should be recorded, and I will work and find a way to get this out to you guys. I don't know if we'd post it on the web, but I can probably post a link. I'll confirm that there's a way for me to get it to you electronically that I can share this video with you guys afterwards. We also had client submits background from BCI. Does a separate form have to be filled out to upload when applying for a permit? So if they go through BCI, we still get the information digitally sent over to us. And as long as that social is in our database, it's running, I think, nightly, I want to say. It's running information which we can, what?
When it's uploaded, it runs,
Oh, so when we get information pushed and we upload it from BCI, it runs a job.
and then every Friday.
And then every week?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of doing cleanup jobs. So it's looking for that social and saying, oh, we got something from BCI, link them up. And then it instantly gives us some more information, like there was no background issues, it's been approved, or there's a problem, we need to look at it. So those that are clean are kind of getting instantly approved in our data, but it is kind of running backgrounds. But I would add, if the data we had a missed, it flipped the 1 and the 4, and the BCI social security number is 4-1, but our data was mismatched and said 1-4, then it's not going to link it because it's looking for the exact match.
You said weekly.
It runs when we upload it. So when we get it from BCI and upload it to your system, it'll run that job. But on top of that, it's also running weekly.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, so days you upload it.
Hey, if we
Okay,
get
the new
I check
information
the
and then
results,
weekly, like if we change,
Put it in.
it catches up, if we change the social security number, so we notice it's wrong, it'll catch up Friday night.
The short answer is yes.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm working with our staff on internal things on what we call views in OPAL as ways to see things that are out there better, to respond better, to respond more quickly. I have, even pre-OPAL, we've talked through and to continue to do so. I mentioned earlier that communication piece, being thoughtful what we're asking for, right? So that we can hopefully cut down on the confusion. Although I will say in the past, there's times I thought I wrote the email perfectly and then they respond back and I'm like, that is not what I asked. But I'm sure we've all been there, right? But still trying to be more thoughtful on what are we asking you to do, right? Because if we're not clear to you, then I appreciate the frustration you feel and the response we get back. And then we get frustrated. Well, why? Well, we didn't ask them, if I'll use an example, right? Well, we had one earlier, right? If we're asking for a purchase agreement, but it's an assignment, they're doing a conversion, right? So I think, it goes on all ends to communicate through that. But I also feel that is just a learning curve we had even pre-OPAL. I think just kind of adding an OPAL new system, kind of figuring out the way through it, whatnot, adds layers to that. But improvement never stops, nor does change. Anything else you guys had? If you're here, please grab some stuff. like I said, we will continue to be at the hearings. Hopefully everyone finds that helpful for us when we're at the hearings.
Big help.
We will try to be more mindful of doing more of these training sessions beyond. Probably we'll do one after the first of the year, maybe late January to February after we roll out stakeholders. So we'll go through some changes there. Like I said, I'll be putting out more frequent emails to you guys, just letting you know what's been changed, what's coming up, and trying to do some more training, listening sessions along the way. Might be reaching out to some of you to do some testing with us as we make some of these changes so that we can do that as well.
There's one thing I did notice. When I file a transfer, I put in the name of the LLC, but then when you'd ask for like an entity name, like a DBA.
Mhm.
So maybe I'll just put in, the Cleveland Club.
Yeah.
Well, when OPAL generates a summary of tenancy form,
Okay.
they don't put the LLC name there. They put the DBA.
All right. And
It was just a glitch.
yeah, no,
That's all. Yeah.
and I mean, there's been those things.
Yeah.
We have to kind of, as we find them, it's one of those.
Yeah.
Got to work through it. Like, why would we? Right. So, but calling out, right, in CICS, not all. And today we don't require DBA. So some of them, like the name was popped into DBA, some had DBA. So we had fields like if it had DBA, let's assume it's a DBA. If it doesn't have DBA, let's assume it's part of the name was some of the logic. But I believe the account name at the location should be your DBA, or if you don't really have one, I've had ones where it's, maybe it's John Store LLC and then it's John Store hyphen Medina.
Yeah, I think it's extremely helpful when you have multiple locations.
Right.
But it just,
Yeah, no,
it's not a big deal.
I get it. We had that at Go Live with the permit. It was pulling the location. I'm like, someone's like, hey, the LLC. I'm like, oh, darn it. I'm like, all right, let's fix it. So as you see those things, highlight them. I can't promise it'll be done yesterday, but I can promise it's on the list. We'll do it. And if it's something really critical.
Just white it out.
Through, I mean, so
Yeah.
it's those things that we find along the way that I can tell you we tried our best, but we didn't get all the things at the first pass, but we're working through it. So I appreciate your patience on that. We go through that. I think that's really all I had for now. Again, I do appreciate everyone taking the time to come out. Hopefully good holidays coming up and whatnot. And
Oh, did you see the last question? Is this training recorded?
it is recorded. Yeah. So it's recorded. Like I said, I'll try and find a way to be able to share it with you, at least maybe through email. I don't think we'd post it on the web for now, but I probably can get a link to you guys via email that you can view it and for later information. And we will be having in the next few days on the website, on the Renew a Permit page, 2 videos. One will talk maybe 2 minutes, maybe a minute of how to get linked to your existing account. And then the other video will be kind of what Cherie did today, walking you through a renewal, narrated by yours truly. So if I put you to sleep, that's the point. But it'll kind of walk you through how to file a renewal and all of those things with images on the screen and whatnot to help you kind of navigate through.
One of the things, just Mark, I was going to mention this to you based on one of your questions. Whenever I am completing an application for a client, I then notify them to just please go into OPAL and register yourself.
Yeah.
Because what I found out is there are a couple that I did early on. I'm the only person listed anywhere in the form.
Right.
Because the system doesn't pull the owner in.
Right.
If they don't go into OPAL. I just assumed the system would pull that name up.
Okay.
If they don't go into OPAL, now everybody's gonna have to get into OPAL to renew.
Yeah.
But right now, when we didn't have everybody in there,
Right.
they're not going in there. So I've just been.
And I think it-
trying to do
I
it.
think it makes a contact for them at OPAL when they're in, but to your point, they still have to,
Yeah.
do they write OHID email? Did they get their email in? So there's all those things that still might have to happen to get full access. But there is a record then, to your point, when you put them in as a stakeholder, shareholder, they are created as a person, but until they get in and do something, right, you're right. It's not going to automatically,
Then
get them in there.
I just get a problem.
Yeah.
Because we have to be notified.
Right. Right. And,
Just tell them.
like transfers, right? When the seller acknowledges it, we need to work on better communication that automatically tells the buyer, hey, seller's approved, go file, right? Those types of things we need to do to close that gap. We're working on that. I would also say one thing we've seen occasionally sometimes on transfers, if you get stuck, just be mindful. Because I've had this happen with a few that I've helped, and I think sure you've had too. We're looking at the taxing district, right? So if I had one attorney one time who's like, I can't find the seller. Well, you can't because you said you're transferring the ownership, which implies to me you're doing it at the same spot, but the location you set up for the buyer was in Richland County, but the seller's in Butler County. So if it's at the same location, I'm looking for permits that exist in that same taxing district. And because you told me at the new location you're switching, if you were doing an ownership and location, you would have found them. But you said you were only doing an ownership and that's why you couldn't find them. So just be mindful of those things as well. That happens, I get it, but just some of that kind of thought to make sure you're kind of thinking that. Just then lastly, I'd add,
Then you cleaned it up. Notice that.
if you're looking for things, just kind of think the logic, right? Like stakeholders are a business issue. That's why they're at the business level, right? Permit classes are a location issue. That's why they're at the location level, right? Account management, who has access, is a business level issue. That's why that tab is at the business level, right? So just, I guess, also thinking through or the renewals. There's certain questions we ask at the business level, because if you were convicted, it's true for all of those locations. But there might be location questions that are you open and operating? That could be more location specific. And then there's even permit class questions that might be related like a D5L. You have to have so much food to alcohol sales. That's not for everything. That's just for that permit class. So we're trying to be methodical, maybe not perfect, but trying to be methodical of asking the questions in the right spot so that you don't have to answer on every location like you used to do on paper. Have I been convicted? You answer it once, it applies to all of your locations. You don't have to answer it 50 times. But we're working through it. So thank you so much. Unless there's nothing else, I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to get out and not ask any more questions. So excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, better than that clue will be from Caddyshack, judging up the Spalding.
Okay.
Said you'll get nothing in like it. Because I want a milkshake, I want a hot dog, I want to get nothing.